After watching the manner in which Mayo swept Leitrim aside in the championship over the weekend, you just start to wonder, is there going to get to a point where county teams decide to just opt out of the championship altogether? I mean, even if you look at some of the results that have happened so far this year in the championship, and even go back to last year when we saw some heavy beatings, the likes of, so even some big teams or teams that you think that can challenge Meath getting absolutely annihilated by Dublin. But championship this year, Sligo obviously hadn't participated since the 2019 championship because they had to step out last year because of COVID issues, losing 323 to 12 points against Mayo, who were pulling up. Mayo missing up as far as 12 players against Leitrim, some being COVID cases and some apparently close contacts. They just, won at a canter, 520 to 11 points. Dublin, they're probably going to hand out a beating or two before the end of the summer. Kerry, 322 to 111 against Clare the first day. Obviously, Tipperary only losing by 11 points. That wasn't too bad. Limerick had hammered Waterford in an earlier round also. But you just wonder at what stage will certain counties just decide what's in this for us? Because, for Leitrim, that was such a hefty defeat. Terry Hyland had spoken about how not every player had made themselves available. This is something that we see regularly with some of the weaker counties. Well, it's probably not even talked about that much because they don't get as much attention. It's generally about the top level teams talking about Kerry, Mayo, Dublin, and so on. But there's a lot of players that opt out of their panels that are in mid-range counties every single season. And you just wonder, Kilkenny obviously is a football or is a hurling county, and football is a bit of an afterthought there, but they pulled out of the championship a long time ago. They're operating in the British Championship at this point. And it's because hurling is so dominant there that they're not too interested in the sport. But you wonder, would other teams have their own reasons and just say, we're just sticking to club football? That's not to pick on Leitrim. They performed as well as they could, and that's the way the game went. And it was just a non-contest from the get-go. But you just will they or Sligo or maybe these counties have their own opinions and get your comments in. Let me know what you think. But maybe they'll feel maybe we just focus on our own club football and have a really extended club championship throughout the summer. Maybe instead of trying to put so much money into funding an inter-county team, maybe as a county board will instead go into every club and put 12 months of the year effort into them rather than into their inter-county team. Because what is the ceiling of the ambition that you can have with a team that's got a tiny population that is sponsored by a pharmacy on the back of their jersey? For other counties like Roscommon are pretty good county and won a Connacht title in recent years, but even they are going around wearing bibs before matches talking about inter-competition to win a home in Roscommon. And it is brilliant that counties are doing that and doing everything they can to try and raise more funds, but it's not a level playing field, and it's never going to be. So how do you compete with the very best teams? Like Dublin maximise their appeal with their commercial deals, and rightly so. And other counties obviously are playing catch up to do that, and some will never be able to get anywhere near the amount of revenue that they can generate from that. And so it is. I remember GA President Liam O'Neill a few years back saying life isn't fair. I mean, some people do better in life, and that's just the way it is. So there is that reality, unless you're going to look to pool all resources and pool revenues and sponsorship money and all that, but I can't really see that that's going to happen. But are they going to opt out eventually? Because we all enjoy the romantic tales. Tipperary won Munster last year. Cavan, they won. There's obviously the odd upset here, there, and everywhere of great victories. But it's just the price being paid is way too high for every brilliant upset story or romantic win. There's just so many of these annihilation games. The football championship doesn't even feel like it's got going yet. Yes, there's been a couple of okay matches. Derry, Donegal, that looked decent. That was a good game. I watched that. It's a team that, Derry were in Division 4, a false position a couple of years ago, and now they're moving up. And, maybe they can kick on to another level. There are certain teams that shouldn't really be down in Division 4 and can kick on. But looking at the provincial system, everyone is sick of it for so long. It's such a high, the price being paid, the big teams, they're getting nothing out of it. The small teams, they're getting nothing out of it. It's too high a price to pay for supporters. I mean, the TV figures can't be great. I mean, I'm sure people turned off in their droves midway through that game. The next generation watching on, what are they taking from that? They're watching the Euros final later on that night. Not the greatest game we've ever seen, but the drama was unbelievable, and it's all anyone's been talking about since. It's who does a kid want to be? Does he want to I mean, that football is just not going to inspire you. I know we have the Tailteann Cup and it hasn't been played because of COVID, but it should have obviously been factored in. Just a little bit hasty to not have it there. But a lot of it comes back to the provincial structures, and you are effectively asking the turkeys to vote for Christmas because it can't be fixed without disbanding the provincial system. But the problem is that provincial councils, they rely on their provincial championships to bring in money to fund activities like coaching and so on. So that's the issue that must be addressed. And people in roles and jobs, they're going to look to protect that, their little corner, their power, whatever it might be. That's human nature. So a lot of these people, they're also on the councils, on central councils. So they're not just in provincial, but they're also towards the top end of the GA centrally. So, how do you get around that? How do you ensure that the funding still goes to these provincial councils and people can somehow keep their role? So, I mean, it's one of these things that has to be teased out if we want to have a future for the football championship. Well, there will always be a future, but if you want to try and do something radical to make it really interesting. So my thought would be, let's say you had a tiered structure to the championship, and it was, now, first of all, play the provincial championships in the space of a month at the start of the year. If you like, there's no reason to drag it out for 2 or 3 months. I mean, for the most part, there's 4 rounds in the Ulster Football Championship, maybe slightly longer in the Leinster Football Championship, but it can be done. Yeah, looking at it, 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds in the Leinster Championship as well. So it can actually be done. But what I would say is play that off in a month, and then let's say you had a tiered structure with 3 levels. So A, B, C, or the Sam Maguire, the Tailteann Cup, and whatever other name you want to go for a third one, which or even if you had 4 sets of 4 groups of 8 teams. Either way that you do that, you would have a huge amount of games. So go back to the 2019 championship, the last time that we had the Super 8s in the competition and the back door and all that. There was a total of 71 games. 31 of those were played in the province. So if you can sort of figure out there, it's probably not far off. 40% of the games were played in provincial championship. If you did a round robin system, if you did 4 groups of 8, that's 112 games before you then even have knockout. And if you want to have an A and a B competition, that way everyone gets to play at the highest level, and then you obviously go into whichever competition after that. Or if you want to go to 3 tiers of 8, you're going to have a huge amount of games as well. Either way, you can work out pro rata. Right, generally the provincial championships get 40% of revenue here. They'll be hosting, all the provincial councils are probably help organise the fixtures and the hosting of those games. So just send the same percentage of revenue, give or take, work off those previous figures and figure out how it works. Obviously decide how much revenue is needed for coaching and so on. There is a way to do it. I mean, that's why the people are in these positions try to figure out something like that, but it's just a starting point for the calculations. And you'll actually, with something like that, with the 4 groups of 8, yeah, there'll be hammerings on a lot of weeks. But every week there'll be many, many good games. And pretty soon, right, you might go through several tough fixtures. That happens in soccer. You have 6-0 wins now and again. But at least there's something to like, you can come through your 6 or 7 games, have a couple of bad ones as a weaker team, still get through, and maybe you're in a good spot going into the Tailteann Cup if that's the B tournament. Even just look at the league recently. Westmeath are in the top tier of the hurling. Yeah, they had some heavy defeats throughout that. But maybe that's the reason that they're in the Joe McDonagh Cup final now, that those games steal them. But the idea that you would wait a full year to just get 1 beaten and that's the end of the season, that's tough for Leitrim, it's tough for Sligo, it's tough for anyone. But it's just a bit more radical thinking, maybe just trying to find a way to get the provincial councils to think, right, how can we actually get rid of that championship or play it at the start of the year and still ensure that the funds that we need are coming back through to us, because the way things are right now, I can't but eventually imagine that other teams will just decide there's nothing in this for us. We're humiliating maybe our county history or whatever it might be. Let's just opt out and spend our time focusing on our club. So let me know what you think.